Back in February 2022, Michail Antonio stated that he really wanted West Ham to bring in another striker during that January transfer window so that he could be challenged for his starting spots in the West Ham lineup. Antonio went on to explain David Moyes' philosophy on player signings, saying that not only did Moyes want good players, but that he looks at the character of the targets that he goes for, and how well they may settle in at life at West Ham United. We know this. We've seen how slowly the new signings have been integrated into West Ham's lineup this season. Then Antonio went on to explain his reasoning for wanting another striker at the club. And he went to say a number of things. He said, people do not understand when I say I want someone to cover for me. I want a striker to come in because I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm thinking about the team, and we want the team to finish as high as possible. The higher the team finishes, the better it is for me and the team. So the better it is for me and the team. So to have that cover, and not just the cover, I want someone to actually push me. I don't want someone to be there just for when I cannot play. I want someone to push me to make me better. And that is the reason why I want someone in to help me. That was 11 months ago. And it's interesting to note some of the points that he made there. I want someone to cover for me. I want someone to help me. I want someone to push me. Now, even though Antonio went on to say he wanted a player to push him, he clearly thought that he could continue to be the first choice striker, regardless of whether any other striker was going to come to the club or not. And of course, as we know, in the summer of 2022, after an 18-month wait, we finally got another striker at the club, Gianluca Scamacca. As we all know, it hasn't been the best of starts for Scamacca or the team as a whole. And one reason for that, of course, is that we're not scoring anywhere near the number of goals that we did in the season before. Then we heard, after the defeat against Crystal Palace just before the World Cup started, that there were heated exchanges between the manager and some players. And it was suggested, although not corroborated, that these heated exchanges may have involved Antonio. In the build-up to the Premier League return, in an exclusive interview with the Evening Standard's Standard Sport, Antonio said he was determined to do two things: to win his place back as West Ham's centre-forward and to fire the Hammers clear of a relegation scrap. With Gianluca Scamacca seeming to be Moyes' first choice, it has meant that Antonio has spent more time on the bench than he would have liked. And he made comment about that as well. He said, "No, I've not been happy with the number of games that I've played. I'm someone who wants to play games. I'm never going to settle for coming off the bench and being involved in that way. That's something that's driven me to where I am now. I'm not really about the rotation type of thing. If I'm fit, I want to play. It's the gaffer's decision on what he wants to do, but I'm always going to let him know that I want to play. Through my career, there's always been competition, someone that wants to take his shirt. Right now, Scamacca's got the shirt. It's my turn to try and improve and work on what I need to work on to get my shirt back." Now, however, despite Antonio's having been given enough opportunities to prove that he's worthy of being in the starting lineup, his form has dropped quite dramatically over the past, season and a half. He was a signing from Nottingham Forest in 2015. He's played in a variety of roles for West Ham United. In fact, there are only two positions he hasn't played in, and that's in goal and at centre-back. Other than that, he's played in just about every other position that you could have asked of him. And we know in 2021-22 season, Moyes gave him the number 9 shirt for to be the club's main, and let's not forget at that time, the only striker at the club. Look, he's been phenomenal for us since 2015. He's had 252 appearances, 66 goals, 41 assists. He's the top goal scorer in the Premier League for West Ham United. In 2021, last season, in 47 appearances, he scored 13 goals with 11 assists. I guess, a reasonable, modest return. However, last season, there were big gaps when he didn't score, where he barely scored any goals at all. Between October 2021 and December, he made 8 appearances, no goals, 1 assist. And then in January to May, He made 15 appearances, 1 goal and 2 assists. That's in the Premier League. He made 34 starts. He made 34 starts in total in the 2021-22 season out of a possible 37. He missed 1 game through suspension. And then this season, so far, 17 appearances, 7 starts, 2 goals, 1 assist. One can say, with all honesty, that his form has dropped off quite dramatically. And many are suggesting that his form dropped off because since his return to international duty, playing for Jamaica. Look, I think it has affected him, but I don't think it's the only factor. It can't be the only factor that's had such an impact on his career at West Ham lately. I don't want to pinpoint just Antonio, but I have been saying now for some time that the fast-paced Premier League will not always will be kinder to some of the older players. We've seen that at times with 37-year-old Fabianski in goal. We've seen that recently with 33-year-old Cresswell, and also, at the tail end of last season as well. And we've been now seeing that with 32-year-old Antonio in attack. Sometimes for a player, no matter how good he was in the past, there just comes a point where he can no longer deliver the kind of form that he had done. If Antonio wants to become the first choice striker, he then must take his chances when offered. But alas, he is not, which is why it's understandable that David Moyes prefers Scamacca as his first choice. Right, Scamacca, I admit, has not done any better. He only has 3 goals in the Premier League now. I think the sad truth is that no matter what, I mean, people are also talking about Antonio maybe playing in a 2 up front with Scamacca, or at least putting Antonio out as a winger rather than up front. I think the sad truth is that no matter what, where Antonio plays, our Premier League top goal scorer is no longer going to have the same impact at West Ham as he once did. So cue the transfer window, and Moyes hinting that if there's a possibility, West Ham will be active in the market. We've already had a knockback from Youssef En-Nesyri. We put in a loan to buy bid, but the Spanish club don't want that. They would rather cash in on En-Nesyri and demanding something like £35 million just because he's had a very decent World Cup. But let's not forget, En-Nesyri's domestic form is pretty poor. He's not scored in the league that so far this season. He's contracted with Seville until 2025. But despite all that, the player himself has publicly stated that he doesn't want to leave the club. I recall when we were interested in him before, we heard much the same thing, that the player didn't fancy West Ham, or certainly the player didn't fancy leaving Seville. Make of it what you want. It doesn't look like he's coming to us in this transfer window regardless, and we really shouldn't spend any more time on him. There are, of course, other rumours that are linking us to other players. I mentioned on West Ham Weekly on Monday night as Ben Brereton Diaz, there's Terem Moffi, and I dare say there'll be several other strikers that will be linked to until the January transfer window is closed at the end of the month. Will we get another striker in the transfer window? Or will one of our development players finally demonstrate that they're capable of being able to step up to the mark and play in the senior team? Armstrong Okoflex has just returned from his loan spell at Swansea, and he's been now training with the senior squad. He can't represent any other team, and he's too old to represent the under-21s. So it's either playing in the senior squad or just sitting on the bench, or not even on the bench and not doing much. There's, of course, Divine Mbama and Kamari Swire, who have both had brief appearances in the senior team as well. So there's hope there too. But with regards to all that, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know whether Moyes is going to let Antonio go. Wolves are interested, of course. There's a dual interest, isn't there, from Wolves? Apparently, is what we've heard, that they're interested in both Antonio and Craig Dawson as well. With regards to the Craig Dawson situation, we know what the situation is. He's got a desire. There's no secret that he wants to move back up north to be closer to home, and that's fair enough. That's totally understandable. And there were reports earlier today that we were talking to we've held exploratory talks with a Senegalese defender, 22-year-old Formose Mendy. The 6 foot through Amiens defender can play at centre back as well as right back. However, the French club are currently 5th in League Two and are harbouring thoughts of promotion back to League One next season. So Mendy is very much part of that thought process. It's also quite a major leap between League Two and the Premier League, and valued at around £2 million. Mendy could be a cheap gamble that might pay off, but then why bring in a 22-year-old from the second tier of the French league when we might want to just look at some of our own youngsters and maybe promote one of them up into the senior squad? We've done that with some of the players, like I've mentioned, Divine Mbama and Swire. Why not look at one of our young defenders, Harrison Ashby, for example, bringing back Emmanuel Angelo from his loan spell at Birmingham City, and maybe give them an opportunity. Look, going back to Antonio, one of the things with him is Moyes has always wanted harmony in his squad. It's quite a big deal for him. Will he keep a player that's clearly unhappy at playing second fiddle to Scamacca at the moment? It doesn't look like Antonio's going to get a lot more starts, given that he's not picking up form. And so it looks as if it's going to be Scamacca first choice whenever Scamacca is available. With that, there could be more unrest in the squad. It could be that Antonio being unhappy could actually continue to impact, if it hasn't already done so, on the squad itself. It's a squad game these days. We know that. We know with the strength in depth that we bought 8 players to ensure that we're offering a bit of competition, something that Antonio himself said back in last February, that there should be players challenging him and other players challenging other positions. You know, competition is good for the starting lineup. If Moyes is true to his mantra that he wants a squad that is in harmony, then he would sell an unhappy Antonio in this January transfer window. He doesn't like being a squad member. He's made that pretty clear. He doesn't believe he should be second fiddle to Scamacca. And like I said, it doesn't look like he'll be a regular starter. And it's more likely that that will happen if he moves away from West Ham United. Would he get first game? Would he be first choice at Wolves or any other club that might come in for him? I don't know. If Moyes grants him a move, I doubt it will be January. I think we're already struggling as it is, not in depth, but certainly in choice of what we need on the pitch. So, if anything, I think Antonio's just going to have to accept the situation that he currently finds himself in, and maybe be granted a move at the end of the season. It certainly wouldn't be favourable to West Ham to sell Antonio to a team that is also struggling down the bottom of the league at the moment. Knowing our luck, he'll go in form. He'll end up scoring a dozen goals for Wolves, keep them up, and we'll go down. So I don't think it's going to happen, to be quite honest with you. Yes, Antonio's unhappy. He's made that very, very clear. But if that's going to be enough to let him go in the January transfer window, we better have a very, very good replacement in place to come in to take his place.